I'm going to start. Thanks for coming tonight to our February Sacramento SMPTE meeting.
Yeah.
I have just a couple of slides to go over to do some housekeeping, and then we'll introduce Chris. First of all, thanks to Ramona and the Nevada County Media for hosting our meeting here tonight. I wanted to introduce our current board members. Myself, I'm Chair Bob Huddleston. Mona Smothers here, our Secretary Treasurer. John Hinkle, one of our managers. John Laron, another current manager. And that's it for the people that are here tonight. Also, I wanted to just let people know we have a call out for volunteers. We're accepting nominations for our 2025-2026 open board positions. You could contact myself or Mona if you have some interest. It's not a whole lot of work. We have lots of support with the board that is doing it. And just like, if you come to these meetings and receive a benefit, you think it's worthwhile and you're getting something out of it, maybe consider giving us a hand and help us keep the section viable. And I'll explain that right here is that we have actually 5 positions that are open for this next go round. So we definitely need some people. And one thing that's very positive is that John Hinkle has agreed to be nominated for the chair position. So not much competition, which we never get. I'm expecting John to be unanimously elected. We'll see how that goes. But John's currently a manager, so it opens up another position. So we still have five positions that we need to try to fill so that we can continue to hold programs.
And John can't do it on his own.
And I was just thinking, I threw this on here too, just to kind of give a shout out for the people that have been volunteering for the SMPTE section for the last 5 years. So these are the names of people that have all made it happen for the last 5 years of meetings. So thanks to all of them, and some of those people are here.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to introduce Chris Lennon. So Chris serves in Ross Video's Office of the CTO as Director, Standard Strategy. He's responsible for Ross's activities and standards and trade organizations, as well as its Global Thought Leadership Program. Chris also serves as Executive Director of the Open Services Alliance, OSA, a global industry organization focused on interoperability among microservice-oriented media services systems, and now a part of SMPTE's Rapid Industry Solutions. The OSA produced the media industry's microservices standards and continues to lead the way in this rapidly evolving area. Chris has held a variety of leadership positions in the Society of Motion Pictures and Television Engineers, including Standards Director, Western U.S. Governor, Local Section Chair, and Chair of multiple technology committees. He's a SMPTE Fellow and recipient of SMPTE's prestigious 2008 citation. He currently is a manager of the SMPTE Rocky Mountain section and serves on the IABM board. So I'd like to introduce Chris Lennon.
Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
See if we can do a nice segue here into my deck.
Yeah, so as Bob kind of said in the introduction, this live streaming thing, you might think, live streams, what the heck does that have to do with Ross Video? The answer is a little bit, but not a whole lot. We're in the live production area. We're not so much in the distribution side of things. I've kind of got dragged, not kicking and screaming, but I've got dragged into this effort through my running of the SMPTE RIS OSA group, which, had anybody heard of that before? Okay. For those who haven't, just real quick, what that group is, it's not the standards part of SMPTE. I always term it as a on-ramp to the standards area of SMPTE. It's a group that allows for rapid development of things that are unencumbered by the standards process, which the standards process has its place and it's there for a reason. But sometimes you want to get things done quicker than years that it often takes to do things in the standards area, and the whole microservices area qualified for that. That it was People want solutions; they want it now. And so I've been running that for several years, and I kind of got dragged into this by one of our members of the group that was a broadcaster, and a lot of the things that we do in RIS OSA are user driven. And this was brought to us initially. It was by Bloomberg Media, actually, so fairly major, but not one of the really, really big ones. But they said, man, we've got this problem, and I'll bet you everybody else has the same problem in our business. And I'm like, oh, really? Well, tell me about it. And they're like, well, it has to do with provisioning all these live streams that we're shooting out to all these different recipients now. And I'm like, what does that have to do with microservices? And they said, well, the problem is it's such a mess right now. It's all managed on Excel spreadsheets, and they're all brought up and provisioned and managed completely manually, and we can't automate them, and we can't build service-based architecture around this. And they said, that's the problem that we want to solve. So so that's why there's a guy from Lost Video up here talking about live streams. So I'm probably preaching to the choir a little bit here, but as we all know, the move to streaming services has been fairly rapid, and it's to me it's like in some ways it's snuck up on me, even though I'm well aware of what's been going on here. This is if you haven't looked, Nielsen, actually, love them or hate them, they do have some interesting data up on their website, particularly in the streaming area. And I just pulled these down a couple of days ago, so this is quite up to date here.
Is it before or after the Super Bowl for Tubi?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know how I grabbed it like 2 days ago, but I don't know if it's the data is probably weeks old.
Right.
But it is fairly current. So I thought, this is interesting. First of all, it probably no surprise, right? That the consumption of media right now, streaming is almost bigger than broadcast and cable put together. And if we were to look at this in 6 months, I would imagine streaming will be bigger than broadcast and cable put together. And it probably depends on the month or week or whatever that you're actually looking at this. You can get the results skewed by things like the Super Bowl. When I initially started looking at this data from Nielsen, looked at it around the time of the Olympics, and it was very skewed in NBCU's favor then. But again, that was an artificial bump, and then it normalized back to this type of thing where you see something like YouTube on top. Hopefully this is visible. Actually, it looks a little bit fuzzy, but anyway, this is a little bit dated, but it actually was the most recent thing that was up on their website. And what's really interesting to me about this is not consumption of streams on phones or tablets or all the different devices. This is home viewing, and this blew me away when I first saw this last year. That YouTube is the #1 service that people watch on their big 70, 80-inch display on their wall in the living room. I found that shocking.
YouTube TV?
No, YouTube.
Oh.
Yeah, not a platform, a service. So yeah, this is just YouTube. So I guess I wasn't terribly surprised by some of the other ones, but now this one's got Walt Disney's a little bit of a blip there. Trust me, I've been looking at this monthly for the last probably 8 or 9 months. It's usually YouTube on top. So there's some kind of an aberration there. There must have been something that.
I can just say for my generation, I'm not surprised YouTube's at the top.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Good.
Everybody I know.
Yeah.
For years now, ever since smart TVs became a thing, that's very commonly how
That's the default.
Watch. Absolutely.
And I'm not sure. I think it's creeping up to the older generations too.
Oh, it is.
Right?
Yeah.
It's
My dad nowadays never used YouTube before, but he got a smart TV 5 or 6 years ago, and that's the majority of what he watches on it now.
Yeah. Phenomenal amount of content, and not having to pay ridiculous subscriptions is a big part of it as well. yeah, I'm not sure what the blip was. Maybe somebody else has a theory of why Disney blipped up there to the top. But in my experience, that's not normal. Disney is top 5, but they're not usually number 1.
I'm surprised that you.
That's a different view of looking at the platforms. So this is just looking at the services that you'd go for streaming. So yes, I'm sure it is on the platform side of things, but we're kind of looking at it from a service perspective here. But hopefully this is fairly reflective of what you're all experiencing, what you're all viewing, right? This is the world that we're in, and it's not changing. YouTube's share is probably just going to increase. Yeah, and this is just kind of slicing and dicing it in a different kind of way. And this is looking at broadcast, cable, and then streaming. And to me, what this shows that's kind of interesting is over the last, this is looking December to December of 23 to 24. To me, this shows the continued erosion of viewership over broadcasting and cable. That it doesn't look dramatic, but again, you look at the share and it's like nibble, 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 nibble every month, and it's not slowing down. Yeah, and so again, you project that out over the next 5 years. We know where this is all going.
Still, that's very surprising. I think for broadcast to still be so high.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, but I think maybe some of that is like the marquee events might things like the Super Bowl, the Olympics, and that sort of thing. Although there's a lot of streaming of those kind of things now. I think broadcast is still broadcast. It's still the best way to get huge events to a large number of people.
And local news.
And local news, yes, yeah. So it's all news and sports, right? I mean that's the secret sauce, and I think we all saw with the Tyson fight that YouTube's not quite, or that was Netflix, but the streaming services are not quite there for the kind of scale that we're used to dealing with all the time in broadcast. So broadcast is not dead, but you can see the erosion continues, and it's not going to stop. I'm quite sure. This was kind of interesting. This was kind of drilling down on Disney Plus, on their subscriptions, and it's kind of showing a general upward trend here of their subscriptions. So thought that was again, this is just one of many. If we were to drill down into any of these, I think you'd see the same sort of thing.
So that includes the whole of the ESPN.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Again, sports. Yep. Sports and news. Of course, I'd be remiss not to talk about fast channels, right? And I always have interesting conversations with my boss at Ross Video on this. He's like, how revolutionary ad-supported linear television. Who would have thought? I think it's kind of funny. But as we've all seen, the growth of fast channels has been unbelievable. The most recent number I could get, this is almost a year old now, this is in the US alone, there's almost 2,000 fast channels in the US. I'd like to get more updated, and maybe we won't see, they seem to be publishing this every May, but I would imagine when we see this for May 2025, we're going to be at 2,500, 3,000. I mean, it seems like every week you're seeing somebody else is announcing a whole other batch of fast channels. So
I don't know what
excuse me. Can you define what a fast channel is?
Streaming channels. So it's the types of things that you might see on a variety of platforms, but on your smart TV, for instance, you've got all these different channels on there. All the premium services have their ad-supported lower tier that's either free or cheaper, that sort of thing. And like I said, my boss is always like, how revolutionary, who would have thought? Free ad-supported television. But it is a trend, right?
You said a key thing. Fast is generally linear, right? So
yep.
it's not like you pick a title and watch it, which what distinguishes it from like prime ad support. You watch whatever they choose to show you, be the show. So it's basically
Kind of like when I grew up
Good
and you
old
turned on the
TV.
Yes.
TV.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
So again, the rumors of the death of linear television are grossly exaggerated because, and again, it all comes down to cost. I think that free is a good price, and if you've got good content and you're able to get it for free, people are actually still willing to watch ads, and we've seen that. And
there's another factor. People like what they refer to as the layback experience. It's like, I don't have the brain cycles to choose one.
yeah,
So you just turn it on, let it wash over.
I feel like
Excuse me.
restaurants and bars and stuff, when they
Yes.
got TVs playing whatever in the background, it's
Yep.
usually something like
some channel
this.
you've never heard of, right?
Something you've never heard of, and it's on and doing from one thing to the next, and that's fine because you're there to do something else. It's just kind of a background thing.
Yeah.
So that's when I'm used to seeing these, I guess.
But does anybody else find it as shocking as I do that there are over 2,000 of these in the
Yeah.
U.S.?
Yeah.
It's not globally. In the U.S., there's over 2,000 of these fast channels, and it's growing very rapidly.
What
And is the content like
what is a fast channel?
a new episode of something?
It
or
varies
just a
depending on the
different type
channel.
of Content?
Yeah,
A lot of-
No, go ahead, Dom.
A lot of local news
Mhm.
gets redistributed. A
Yep.
lot of like your local TV stations are also rebroadcasting, and that kind of counts as fast.
Is it real time-ish? Okay.
Yep,
Mhm.
totally. It- Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yep, yep,
Tubi.
yep. Tubi,
Mhm.
yep.
Just curious, Chris, you may be going there, but the number is huge. You look at the revenue figures of those.
Yeah, it's not fully realized, right? The monetization of these, and if you've watched any of these, yes, they're ad supported, but in the course of watching something for an hour, you'll probably see the same ad a dozen times,
That would be
which is awful, right? And it actually turns us off.
That's actually true for VOD platforms as well, right?
Yeah. So it's immature, but I think it will get there, right? They've got enough eyeballs. They will figure out how to monetize these better than they are right now. And there's a huge pot of gold at the end of this rainbow for people who are putting these out there. And it's also a great way to capitalize on your investment in content, right? If I'm somebody who produces content, I can get it out to all these other places so that there's more eyeballs that can get on it than would have gotten on it from the traditional distribution channels that get my content. An example of this, so I mentioned that the people who brought this whole project to the OSA group were Bloomberg, which again reasonably big but not monstrous. And I said, so how many live streams? I'm not talking about files that I'm sending out that people could watch it, whatever. This is live streams that you are having to manage on a daily basis. Any guess, somebody like a Bloomberg, how many live streams they're sending out every single day to a variety of destinations?
Is it just the U.S. or is it larger than?
They're global. They're global.
Yeah.
It's a good guess. Any others? Over 300 for Bloomberg. So imagine somebody like Disney or NBCU, or one of the other ones who has a lot more content potentially than Bloomberg. Now, Bloomberg is news-based, right? So it does lend itself very well to live streaming, but 300 plus live streams that they're sending out every single day. And again, managing this on spreadsheets.
Mhm.
So when you define live stream in this case, is somebody sitting in front of the camera live and they go out to
Yeah. Yeah, and it gets to
as
people
opposed
however.
to a live stream, but it's being played back by a server.
Right, exactly. No,
Okay.
this is live.
We
Yeah.
just have to be very
Yes.
careful about how we define that. 'Cause live stream, but it's just.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's recorded on a server and people watch. Yeah.
In an order. So,
Yeah.
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 That's interesting. Yeah.
So, again, I found this, all these numbers I find quite stunning. That, we all pretend to know that streaming is taking off and all that, but until you really dig into this, it's like, wow, it really is. And then this was something that, I don't know if you guys saw this. This was just on Tuesday. Again, showing that how the landscape is changing. That I don't know if you guys saw this. That Fubo Sports is now going to be distributed over the air in 100 plus markets. Again, everything old is new again, right? But revolutionary over the air live sports. But again, there's a great example of the innovation that's going on around fast channels, and there's another announcement probably every day that comes out around this. Again, this is just kind of showing the YouTube trends over about an 18 month period. It's significant, and this is just kind of a snapshot of. So it's not just brand new things, brand new services that people are bringing up. This was last year from March through August. This is the mergers and acquisitions that happened in the streaming place in like 6 months. And you can see, these are huge ones, right? And so like the sands are shifting absolutely constantly under us. And what this means is if I'm a content producer and I'm providing these live streams out, just because I've got it like, okay, I've got my 300 stream set now, tomorrow it's going to change. That there's consolidation out there. There's services that are disappearing, new ones that are appearing, and it would be naive to think that's not going to continue to change. So again, it's not just new things popping up. It's the changing landscape that we've got with mergers and acquisitions that are taking place here. So like I said, the problem or the challenge, better way to put it, right? It's not a problem. It's a challenge or it's an opportunity. Is how can we get our arms around this and manage this in a more automatable type of way than is dealt with right now. So, and I've kind of already talked about some of this. That again, the rate of adoption of these new services is just insane. And particularly with the fast channels, it's kind of out of control. What takes place right now? So again, to show you how bad it is, it's a completely manual process. So the example I was given again, let's go back to Bloomberg as being one of the people who started all this. They said, okay, so they find out that the people in distribution at Bloomberg have negotiated a deal with YouTube, for instance, and they're like, okay, we've figured out the rights, we've got a contract done, get the content out to these people for distribution. Well, it's not just a matter of flipping a switch or invoking a service to make that happen. It's actually a series of phone calls and emails right now between Bloomberg and YouTube, Hulu, whoever, and they're saying, okay, well, I can give you this stream in one of like 6 different flavors, for instance. It might be worse, it might be more, it might be less. So they're like, okay, and then whoever's getting it says, oh, that's great. Well, I can receive it in one of these 4 flavors. So they're like manually going, it's like, okay, well, we've got like D and F are in common. Okay, so which one of those, which format are we going to send you the stream in? And the number of variables is just huge, right? So there is zero standardization here. It's completely a Wild West type of thing. And this, again, on a daily basis, these conversations are taking place manually, by email, phone, that sort of thing. And they're negotiating and saying, okay, let's try format D. Let's see how this works. I'm going to give you an HD stream and in this format, and I'll go into a little more detail of what's out there. So
The problem that needs to be solved is get rid of this complexity. Yeah, again, it's like every one of these is unique, and it's nuts. But it's kind of what happens with anything that's new, right? Before things become mature, they're a mess. They're always a mess like this, right? We've all been around the business, I think, long enough to see that things are a mess until they become so messy that they're untenable, and then people get together and find a way to clean it up. And that's kind of where we are here. So reduce the complexity. The time to market is a real problem. Again, with the content owners, they'll negotiate a deal and they're like, we want that stream up tomorrow. And the tech guys will be like, ha, ha, ha. You might have it in a month because there's so much complexity to it. And there's so much manual stuff that goes on there. And that's money, right? If you can't stand it up right away. The management overhead, again, with things changing all of that, you get rid of the one-offs. And dirty little secret here, not as many dirty little secrets that we've uncovered in this effort. We didn't actually start with this effort talking about security, but we wound up there. There are massive, massive security gaps in the area of live stream distribution right now, such that the way I put it is, well, is it easier for a hacker to get at? It's worse. You don't need to be a hacker. You just need to have some really, really basic knowledge, and the kid in the basement can get at any piece of content they want for free from anybody. That's how bad this is. It's completely unsecured. It doesn't take much knowledge to get around it. This is my favorite picture in the entire deck. It may look like something that we had ChatGPT generate of create a nightmarish looking workflow. This actually is part of Bloomberg's live stream distribution workflow. That's actually a real chart that shows, again, I'm not going to blow this up, but it shows what a complete mess this is right now of them trying to provide these streams to all the different streaming services. So, and again, it's going back to every single configuration is unique. There's so many variables, but in the end, we're trying to do the same thing every time. This is not brain surgery. We're trying to provide a live stream of audio and video from point A to point B. You would think after decades in the TV business, we would figure out how to do this in a simple way, but in the streaming world, not true. Again, they're all kind of new players, and they're all like, this is how you're going to do it. Also, the days of the broadcasters being the big players and being able to dictate how this is done are long gone. Even an NBCU or Disney cannot dictate this anymore. They're small compared to the people that they're sending this to, the Amazons and the Netflix and Googles and that sort of thing. So I mentioned we didn't intend to go down the security rabbit hole, but we ended up going down that in a hurry. That origin distribution, so like CDN type of distribution, is rarely, maybe never, secured by default, and being able to get to these streams is ridiculously simple. We've had in meetings of this group, we had somebody from Bloomberg and somebody from NBC go and say, "Let me show you how easy it is to get at one of our streams." From, again, just somebody in a basement. There, you can get it whatever you want from anybody, and it's not unique to Bloomberg or NBCU or Disney or whoever. It's a ubiquitous problem across the whole business. So this needs to be.
So all the passwords 1, 2, 3.
There aren't passwords.
Admin 1, 2, 3.
There's no passwords on these streams.
Yeah.
Maybe we shouldn't be recording this. But there is no security.
Okay.
There's nothing, which is stunning when you think of the value of the content that's being streamed out there every single day. Fortunately, it's not widely known that we have this major problem. It's going to be, though, and so we need to tighten this up. So one thing we did in this group when we saw that there were major security issues, we said, well, let's look at some things that have been done, and in SMPTE actually,
for 2110 for IP-based distribution, there was a group that that worked on PTP security and making sure that the timing stuff couldn't all be hacked and they identified all the vulnerabilities there. So we borrowed a model that they took, which is really cool. What they ended up doing is building these threat models, and what they built was called threat cards, which takes a threat and puts it into a little thing that can fit on half of 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, basically, that says, here's what the threat is, here's kind of a description of it, and here's possible mitigations, and here's recommended ways to get around it. So in this area, we've come up with so far 5. We started out with more than that, and then we kind of cut it down. But basic threats that are in there, where again, the producer of the content gets intruded by a bad actor. There's a malicious bridge that's put in place to go and steal the content. One of my favorite terms that came up in this effort, anybody ever heard of D2P? Any guesses what D2P stands for?
Direct to pirate.
Excellent. Direct to pirate. And this was contributed by a major media company that's involved in our effort here. They're like, you ever heard of D2P? We've got D2P all over the place. It's direct to pirate. Crazy that it's actually got a name. I like the name though. I think it's great. We get tampering with the manifests of the content, and then the big one is denial of service, just flooding the person who's sending it with just requests and taking down their service. So this is not a comprehensive list, but these are the big ones that we've come up with, and ones that we think we have some mitigations for that we can make recommendations around. I should be clear that although this is again a SMPTE effort, we have no goal whatsoever of doing any standardization around this. This is just best practices, because that's probably asking way too much when you saw the mess that we're dealing with. Expecting everybody to go kumbaya and circle around and embrace a standard for this, I think the horse has left the barn. Is that the right way to put it? The best we can do is kind of say, here's the problems, here's some potential ways you can solve it, some best practices, and at least clean it up a little bit. So we're trying to be pragmatic about, we think we can go this far in fixing it. We're under no illusions that we can just wave a magic wand and make all this fantastic and super simple. So how do we do it? And what kinds of things are we looking at specifying in our best practices here? So number one is limit the variations, the various flavors of these, both for mezzanine streams and then prepackaged streams that are sent out there. Define a standardized security pattern for we've identified 2 types of distribution that's done. It's point to point, which is what you would imagine, one point, or shouldn't say origin because it's different, but a source and a destination for the stream, and then origin distribution, which is more of a CDN based thing where I'm sending the content out to a CDN and it's going to multiple destinations there. So those are the 2 kind of patterns that are out there, and they both have their own unique challenges out there. Oh, content delivery network. People are familiar with that. So it's basically I provide my content out to a content delivery network, and then people can subscribe to that and get your content from there. So they're not interfacing directly with the person who's providing the content. They're going through this CDN. So in some ways, that's much more efficient. And some platforms do that, some do point to point. Again, there is no standardization. People just kind of do whatever they're comfortable with out there.
But then the platform that's going that form of distribution, the producer's point of view, once it hits that platform, then there's a content distribution network behind that platform.
Could be.
I would assume.
It could be. It could be. In some cases, yes. Some cases, no.
I mean, everybody who's
Dom, it's right
logging
next to you.
into something
Right here.
to get the stream.
Other side.
Hold that thought. One of the people in our group actually made some pictures around this that might help to kind of illustrate that. And then finally,
let's try to get rid of, there are some of these distribution models are using protocols that are completely ill-suited for it. They're like consumer protocols, and they're using it for distributing professional video, again, because people don't know better, on the receiving end, and they're like, you need to send it to me in this way. So, get rid of that as much as possible. I'm going to just skip over that. All right, so I talked a little bit about the point-to-point and origin-based distribution. So they kind of are what they sound like, but the point-to-point is where if I've got a stream, I'm going to go and encode that stream. I'm going to put it in a particular protocol and then send it out to whatever recipients want to get it to, and I can have as many of those streams as possible. MVPD, yes, yeah, alphabet soup, right? Boy, you use it so much I don't even think about it. But it's basically a platform, multi-video. No, man, use it every day and don't even think about what. and MVPD at the highest level would be like a Comcast or the old world DirecTV or a Dish Network or something like that. It's somebody who provides multiple streams out to the consumer. So YouTube TV would be somebody like that. Yeah, so that's kind of what an MVPD is.
Multi-channel video programming distributor.
Thank you.
Channel video programming distributor.
The internet knows everything. And so, when we're doing point-to-point, that's largely when we're sending things out to these MVPDs, to, again, social media or other really large-scale types of platforms. And I'm not sure how well this is. I guess it's fairly viewable here, but it basically shows. I encode the video here. I actually do have some security, some firewalls in between me and then when the stream ingest services take place, and these are, again, just some of the protocols that are used out there. So things like SRT, ZXI, RIST, RTMP. So I ingest it, I transform it, I then distribute it out in whatever formats the receivers want, and then here's all my MVPDs receiving it, and we have another layer of security here. So there actually is there is some security on the point-to-point type of distribution. It's not nearly as tight on the origin-based distribution, which origin distribution is more when I'm sending things out to these OTT, over-the-top platforms or fast channels. That's more of this origin-based distribution. Again, more of a CDN type of approach. And I've got an equivalent picture here that one of our people put together on that. Again, showing the same sort of model, but you're ending up in this at a CDN in some kind of a origin storage there, which is then pushing things out to whoever is receiving it. So there's kind of these two different models. Why did we end up there? I don't really know, but that's where we are right now, where there's a bunch of it goes point to point and a bunch of it goes over CDNs. And this is kind of the same sort of thing, but ABR is adaptive bit rate distribution, again, where I can change the bit rate depending on a variety of factors. All right, and then just to kind of wrap this up, this is just a very high-level survey, but one of the things we did, and I mentioned that the protocol mess is a complete mess. And so this is just a list of some of the protocols that are used right now for live stream distribution. So we tried as a group to, we have no interest in one or succeeding over another. We just thought it would be a good thing to go and let's just show all the different ones that are out there. So things like, again, alphabet soup here, but RTP before we're air correction, RTSP, RIST, Quick, SRT, RTMP, and again, some of these are standards, some are proprietary, from certain companies, some are a mix, and we've kind of broken all that down. And some are free, some are not free, some are sort of free. But we tried to, again, take an even-handed look at, each of these and what type of distribution uses each of them. So you see these are all your point-to-point contributions and then your origin-based ones. We've got Zixi down at the end because it's a commercial one, but primarily used for point-to-point. Again, type of network connections that are used, whether it's UDP or TCP. Is it an open standard or not? What type of packet loss recovery is there? What type of latency are we dealing with? Is there any content protection implied within that transport? Any type of authentication, like I was talking about, often there is no authentication of who's getting it. And then we added a couple different comments in there. So again, probably not comprehensive, but I'm not sure anybody's ever actually done this from a neutral perspective of let's just look at all the different things that are out there. And again, we're not going to say everybody needs to just use Zixi. As much as Zixi would love that. We're just going to point out the pros and cons of the various protocols that are out there, and you choose what makes sense to you. But we're trying to, again, just be Switzerland and just kind of point out the pros and cons of the various protocols.
I can understand why there would be a bunch if there's people developing their own proprietary one, but for all of those open standard ones, why are there so many? Were they developed for a particular thing?
Yes.
And then another one?
Yes.
I mean, just evolved that way?
It's the old joke is the great thing about standards is we have so many of them. But it's true.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, they were all developed to address a particular use case.
Mm-hmm.
The problem, though, right now is a lot of them are being abused. They're being used for things they were never designed to be used for, and that's why we have, security problems, or they're just ill-suited for what we're doing. But, somebody thought, well, I'm familiar with that protocol. Let's just use that. That'll work. And then it persists. And that's a lot of the mess that kind of we're in right now. And so what we're trying to do is just educate the industry. Again, we don't care what wins. But we do care about cleaning this up. And again, the end goal that we want to get to here as a group and hopefully as an industry is get to the point where this can actually all be managed, provisioned and managed in using services, not using spreadsheets and not using people doing emails and phone calls and that sort of thing. So that's really where we're trying to get with all this. Will we actually succeed with that? I don't know, but we do have all the right people in the room. We actually just had a meeting of this group in person last week in New York, and it's not just SMPTE. We've got a group called the SVTA, the Streaming Video Technology Alliance, which are all the recipients of this, who are just as guilty as the broadcasters are in making this mess. We've had the SCTE, the cable side of things, involved with this. The IAB Tech Lab is involved with this. NABA is involved with it. So, and IABM on the manufacturer side. So we've tried to identify every segment of the industry because you need wide buy-in if we're going to actually fix this. SMPTE's leading it, but SMPTE can't solve this on their own because, again, a lot of this is distribution stuff, and that's not SMPTE's realm. But
you said it was not going to be a standard, but is it going to be like an RP, a recommended practice or something? Okay.
Yep. And so that's where we are right now is within the RISOSA. We have a recommended practice, and it's not ridiculous. It's like 25 or 30 pages long with lots of pictures. What we're trying to do is get that to the point where we can hand it over to the SMPTE standards area for at least some initial publication. We'd like to get it handed over before NAB, ideally. I don't think we're going to get there because that's like 8 weeks away. But we made huge progress in New York last week, and this group meets every other week. So again, if you have interest in this, actually that's the next slide, is how to join. You can contact the good people at SMPTE, and they'll help you with joining. Yeah. They have not been. Very interesting you say that, though. Yes, I actually got a phone call a couple hours ago from Brad Gilmer saying, hey, we got VidTrans coming up in 2 weeks.
You want to talk about this and or another thing? So I may be talking about this to the VSF community in a couple of weeks as well. But yes, it makes sense. Yeah, and in particular with the wrist angle on this, wrist is a VSF led effort, and that's one of the potential solutions here. But it's something that is, from my perspective, I wouldn't say this in front of the VidTrans group, but it struggled to get uptake, right? SRT has really been dominating this, but wrist has some value there as well. So if they can be part of the solution, that's great. So great question. Yes, we're trying to engage VSF in this as well.
This is all about basically transport protocols.
Yep. And security.
It has nothing to do with encoding video.
Yep.
It's just getting it from here to there, which we used to have a phone company, or we just have IBM that would provide all of those
right.
standards.
It was dictated, right?
So, and it worked.
And that's the problem is now it's not.
So interesting.
And there are so many more players now, and I think that's how we've gotten to the mess that we're in today. Is there's so many players, and there's so many players out there who will not be dictated to, who are used to doing the dictating. If you talk about people like Google and Amazon and that sort of thing, they're used to being in the position of saying, well, this is how we do it, make it work. And I don't want to just pick on them. You're also talking about the TV manufacturers, the Samsungs and the LGs and those kind of things. They're running a lot of these channels as well, and they're dictating how you do it, and they're big enough that they can do that. So it's understandable how we got where we are. We just cannot continue down the path that we're in. So again, we're trying to come up with a solution. Wish us luck. If you have any interest in helping, or if you're familiar with any players who feel the pain here or have potential solutions, it's not too late to get involved. Would love to. Again, we're trying to cast a wide net right now, but we think we've got this recommended practice in decent enough shape that it's time to have a larger group look at it. And by the way, even though we're going to hand this off to the standards group within SMPTE, we're going to use a fairly new, maybe 2-year-old process called PCD, Public Committee Draft, which is like a draft standard. It's a new thing that SMPTE allows you to do is you get partway into the standardization process, and then you pause it, and you publish it for free to everybody and say, everybody take a look at it and tell us if we're nuts. Before we spend like 2 years or whatever it is, to go through the whole SMPTE standardization process and then end up with something that nobody uses. So I'm personally a huge fan of the SMPTE PCD process, and that's what we plan on using. And we're hopeful that from the time we hand it off to SMPTE standards to the time that they can publish it as a PCD is like, a quarter or two, rather than a year or two or a decade or two in the case of some SMPTE standards. So. Anyway, yeah.
I wanted to ask Chris, the slide you had before with all the on top of UDP, RTP.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's where we've got that right here in the kind of the underlying protocol.
So is there some of these protocols that are silicon? Is that a driver in the process, or is it all just software running?
It's a good question. Nobody's really talked about that. I don't know the answer.
Well, I mean, that could drive the adoption of something if somebody had really great silicon.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
It's
the first time I've heard of all.
You've never heard of Quick before.
Quick. Yeah. Trying to think where that came from. It's fairly new.
I think NDI is actually built on Quick.
Is it? Yeah.
So I think Quick in itself, I'm not sure is used much.
But NDI certainly is.
I might be mistaken.
It's a fairly new compared to a lot of these. Excuse me.
So companies like AWS,
yep,
they have their own preferred.
Yes, they do. But the problem is their preferred subset is totally different from Google's for YouTube, which is different from Netflix's, which is different from Samsung's, which is, again, Yeah, it would have been nice if they would have all gotten together, but that would have never happened, I guess. Because again, this has grown organically, right, over the last, and it's explosively, and it's grown so quickly, and everybody wants to get content, wants to stand up all these new channels, and they want them yesterday. So they're just like, well, just use this. You know, just there's no strategic thought behind it. At least
stop and rebuild all that. Yeah, that's
good luck. Yeah, and that's why we said, to try to attempt to standardize this and say, we're all going to use SRT. Good luck. Even though SRT is fairly ubiquitous out there right now, that's not going to be received well by anybody. And they're going to be like, well, it works right now. Why would I change? Well, how about if we can stand up channels, in a day or two versus a week or two? Would that motivate you? Maybe.
Should,
Yeah. Again, comes back to business, realities. So,
Challenge is fixing the plane while it's up in the air.
right. Yeah, exactly. And this is a supersonic plane.
Yeah,
This,
exactly.
this is, yeah. So,
I'd hate to be the guy who hits the turn key. It all breaks.
well, and this is huge money, right? In all these streams that are going out, globally right now. So, I'm not going to stand up here and guarantee that, this is the be all and end all, and we're going to solve all this, but we're going to fight the good fight.
Thank you for trying.
So, yeah. And we're gonna try to fix this as much as we can.
Is there any other group that's doing this? Or
Well, that's why we've been liaising with other groups. The SCTE has done a fair bit of work on the security side of this, and the SVTA on the streaming video side of it has done a fair bit of work. So yeah, we're trying to just absorb all of that in and don't reinvent anything and just say, hey, these guys have already established some pretty good practices here, so use this as well. So
it seems like cable head ends, they moved to digital years ago, they would have established some standards that they have for content.
You would have thought. I mean, the SCTE has been across this for probably 4 or 5 years now, but it's still a bit of a mess.
I think a lot of what happened there was they just took those transport streams that went over satellite and pushed them over. Good.
It's the easy answer, right?
It is the easy answer. Generally, as long as you have a reliable network connection,
Mm-hmm.
particularly you get transmitting signals across non-reliable connections.
Yeah.
That's where SRT.
Do any of these protocols have commercial insertion data? Like, that is separate.
It's a good question.
When you talk about SCTV,
Yeah, SCTV. Yeah, and
their standards.
those people have more expertise in that. But we have had them involved in the IAB Tech Lab people who are all over the ad insertion stuff. I'm not an expert in that, but they're involved in the group.
I can tell you, for instance, that SRT is a wrapper around a conventional transport stream, at which point, yeah, you can put all the scummy triggers you like into it. But unless you have that transport stream structure where you understand how to insert those triggers, then it becomes, I don't think, for instance, RISC, certain things like RTSP don't use the same, if they have it, they're not the same mechanism. There's a lot of stuff in some of these protocols probably for player side games. That's not
Right. Yeah.
what I was talking about.
Yeah.
John, when you talked about an unreliable internet connection, are you talking about like remote areas or is there just
No,
specific?
but
Oh.
just the internet.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's
If I try and send you a packet, it doesn't always get there over the internet, the normal public internet.
kind of best effort, right?
And so, like UDP is a protocol that makes no attempt to deal with packet loss. TCP is designed to have some ability to do submission. And then SRT, which is built on top of UDP, has its own retransmission protocol. All of this stuff. So, but anything that's going over just the public internet is a liable attack.
got it. Okay, that makes sense.
Thank you very much, Chris.
All right.
Yeah.